of delegations across European and Southeast Asian countries. It's a privilege, sir, and thanks a lot for this opportunity. I invite now Mr. Bansal to have his opening remarks. Thank you very much, and namaskar, everyone.
Thank you so much, Mohit, for bringing everybody and connecting everybody to this platform. I'm extremely grateful to Jairam and all the 4 distinguished MDs and CEOs for spending such a valuable time, as I say, for passing on the learning and the knowledge, not only to the next generation, but to the people of our age and people across the country and overseas. I was seeing the list of registrants today. I'm sorry, Jairam, there was a disconnection every time. It's happening.
Yeah.
And I must say that people from all walks of life, including a former chairman of the Competition Commission of India, he was the founder chairman of that commission, they're all there. So today we have a very distinguished gathering who has been very keen to learn from all of you. And I feel really privileged of having Jairam, Mohit, CBL, and all the great MPs and CEOs. So I will not take more time because I'm also looking forward to a lot of learning from each one of you. Jairam, please take over and take us to the next era altogether, I would say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Bansal, for everything. And first of all, I think you did not do right by telling us who are all on this program, because that puts a lot of pressure on us. You know that, at least on me. So let's get started. I'm delighted to be here. And let me at the outset mention that this is not a book review by these eminent gentlemen. They are really going to be talking about a book that inspired them, what was the particular learning they got from that book, and how they applied it to in their work and in their life. So that is going to be the takeaway really for all of us. I'll start with Charles. Charles, we know that Volvo, makes extremely desirable, luxurious cars. Is there anything specific you'd like to tell us more about Volvo quickly, which is something, a wow factor, which maybe we don't know?
Well, I think that, the most important thing and what's always been at the heart of us as a company and our DNA is safety. And I think that in these kinds of times that becomes more important than ever. So I think many of you, when those on the line that think about Volvo, they think of leadership and safety, and that's certainly what we as a small Swedish luxury car company have excelled at for many years, and I think that's the right way to think about it.
Okay, and I know, Charles, that you have traveled to over 50 countries, and if I were in your place, the next time I visit an airport, I'm going to have an identity crisis. I would not know whether I'm in the arrival lounge or the departure lounge. And you have traveled and you have lived possibly in 13 countries, and you are a foodie, you like experimenting, you do crazy things, and you have eaten all kinds of food. I hope no bats in Wuhan. What's the Indian cuisine that you love?
Oh, that's a very tough one. That's a very tough one. Luckily in this job, I've been able to go north, south, east, and west, and from the great kind of coconut curries in the south to the mustard flavors of Bengal to the hearty food of Punjab and Chandigarh. And hard for me. Don't put me on the spot and make me.
All right. Okay. But I was also amazed to learn that you have been playing ice hockey for the last 45 years. And lo and behold, you found an ice hockey rink in Gurgaon too, where you guys have been playing regularly. So
yes.
You must be missing all that in this lockdown period, and I'm sure you have your ways and means of keeping yourself fit. So let's come to the theme. I would now leave it to you to share with us the book that inspired you. Why did you pick it up? What specifically inspired you, and how did it help you in your life, in your work and career? Over to you, Charles.
Perfect. Thanks, Jairam. I think this is a great opportunity. I think to have a lot of young and aspiring business leaders to join us here, and I think what I'd like to do is just share a little bit, not so much exactly. I encourage you to read this book. It's a book called First Break All the Rules by Marcus Buckingham and Kurt Kaufman. in a collaboration with the Gallup organization. And I'd encourage you to read the book, but I think what I'd like to share today mostly is how this book inspired me. And I think first, you know, I first read this book almost 20 years ago when I started to manage people. And, you know, I think that all of us that are managers and new managers understand that feeling that, you know, they want to do a great job, but, you know, maybe they don't always know how to do that. And so, you know, this was a book that I picked up at the time, and it really helped me out a lot. And although, you know, I will say I didn't know anything about managing people at the time, I will say that I had three things that were kind of going for me at the time. First, I had this drive to be a great manager, right? It's something that was innate in me, and I think anybody on this call, I'm sure, also has that kind of drive. And one thing, though, I think I also had was a humbleness that I can admit to myself that I didn't know how to do this, right? No matter how well educated we are, no matter how experienced we are, I think there needs to be a certain humbleness about you to say you don't know everything. And, you know, I think I had a little bit of that then, but I certainly didn't have enough, but at least in this case I did. And I think finally I was really I was open to learning from outside sources, and most importantly, you know, this was an opening to really learn from the very best in the management topic, on this management topic of managing people. And I think what, you know, just a few insights when I first read First Break All the Rules. I had a very, I would say, conventional wisdom about managing people. I firmly believe that, you know, that managers, what they should do is it's pretty simple. You just tell your people how they should do their jobs, tell them how they should work. And, you know, that I think is a very common misconception. Actually, I think no one is inspired being told how to do their work. I think as a very basic tenet at the beginning, I learned that I really needed to set the objectives that people needed to achieve, and then really let them figure out how to do it on their own way. And actually, then I would learn from them on lots of different ways to approach these objectives. I also had a very conventional approach to managing when I thought about, you know, it's also quite common to say, oh, you know, this is my team, this person, I need to coach them, I need to understand their weaknesses and help them overcome them. And I have to say, I think this is completely the wrong approach. I think, you know, I think we all know from our daily interactions that people don't change very much. You can coach them on weaknesses all you want, but they're really not going to change their essence very much. And I think what I took from this is really we should look for people's strength. And when I say strengths, I mean, really you have a strength on doing the things that you like to do. We should be helping people and our employees find things that they like to do, and they will do that to a level of excellence that is going to be much better than improving on their weaknesses. And then finally, I think another insight I took at this time is, I think we have going along with kind of weakness management, there's certainly a pull for new managers and all managers to spend time with those that are the weakest on the team and help them improve and help them do their jobs. When really, I think you get the most out of your own management time when you spend time with your best. You should be spending the majority of your time with your best people. That way you learn execution, you learn from excellence, and then you can help the organization even more. And those that are the weaker members, you need to certainly help coach them up, but perhaps if they're not going to be able to reach that excellence, look for a change in cast. I think that set me on a good path, but I think I actually reread the book a few years later after, you know, having a number of management positions and, you know, growing in the organization and my responsibilities. And I think when I looked at some of the pitfalls that I fell into, I think I was quite critical of people's mistakes. And I like to look at what people were doing and point out those mistakes. And in my mind, I was helping them. But I think I found over time and through insight from this book that one of the most powerful forces in an organization is recognition for things done well. It's a very powerful tool. And I think that the managers, rather than pointing out mistakes, should be recognizing great work. And I think that has a much better impact for the individual and for the organization. And I think finally, what I'd take away from this book is just the way that I spent my time in my early years compared to how I spend it now. I think we're tempted to dig into the business to really do the job, and I understand that needs to be done. But a lot of attention as you grow in your responsibilities should be spent on creating the right work environment and the right work culture. That is really what unlocks great performance, creating an environment that's positive, creating an environment that's trusting, creating an environment that's very transparent and open in information exchange. This is really something that I take away and very much use to this day. So I highly recommend the book. I would encourage you to read it, and I hope you can take away some insights as well and learn from some of my mistakes.
Thank you, Charles. Those are really some fantastic words of wisdom, but the way you delivered it, I'm sure there are a lot of people who are listening to us, CEOs, CEO designates, wannabe CEOs. I think they understand that the CEO is not a Superman. CEO can be vulnerable.
Far from it.
Yeah. And I think there's so much that you have just shared. So coming back to books, I think we all have friends in books. And while you were talking, my mind went back to the poem Daffodils by William Wordsworth, because it's all about, he saw this wonderful flock of golden daffodils that made him happy. But later on, whenever he used to feel sad or when he used to feel alone, he used to take his mind back to that wonderful visual and he used to feel happy again. And that's what books do to us. Anything that you find in a book which you remember, you can always draw on it. And let's not forget, lonely is the head that wears the crown. So we need something like this to also keep us going. So thank you for all that. And let me now move to Bimal. Hi, Bimal. Bimal, I believe that, Indus Towers, the company that you run, is possibly the world's largest telecom tower company. Tell me if that is true. And if possible, quickly tell us something more which will wow us about your company.
Well, firstly, good evening to everybody, and thank you, Jairam, for inviting. And Charles, really appreciate your insightful presentation. Yes, Indus Towers is a young 11-year-old company born as the largest telecom infrastructure company. And I won't delve too much on this, besides the fact that the way we are communicating right now, I think there is a lot of role which Indus plays in connecting most of the people who are joined in as well. So I think with COVID, without COVID, with the floods, earthquakes, and God knows what, I think we've been there silently working, and I think that's what Indus does. That's the company I work for.
And I know you are a man of varied interests, and you are also an engineer, and you have done your law. CEOs are supposed to be visionary, but you actually take the cake, because I think you visualized it long time ago that you'll get into an industry which is going to get into all kinds of litigation. So you did law also. Great thinking. And
Sorry,
yeah, and then you are into golf and running, and for the last 15 years I've been running. So you must be terribly missing all that in these COVID days. I'm trying to bring forth this point that CEOs are just not CEOs. They're people of fantastic varied interests. So how are you keeping yourself healthy?
Well, Jairam, I think you have a knack of binding people including just as you bind your books as well. Now, I was wanting to at least talk about two books, and one of them happens to be about running, which is this Haruki Murakami-san's, the memoirs as well. Where I think just 4 words around it is running is a metaphor. It's not necessarily a physical exercise, and that's how I believe. And I think, irrespective, earlier I was running inside, and now with restrictions off, I have continued to run outside as well, and I think I'm enjoying it even now. So yeah.
On a lighter vein, we always say, that there are two kinds of people. There are those who are happy and those that are married. No, if you're married, you can't be happy. So coming to running, those of us who are married, we know what it means to be running all the time for our life. Now we'll come to your book that you're going to talk about today. Could you now, take it from here and share with us the book, what inspired you and what learnings and how did you apply it?
Great, thank you. I will do so. But let me first comment. I think there is a lot of common thread between what Charles mentioned and what the book I'm going to talk about today as well. And I think it's amazing how there is a connect between the books and the thought processes as well. So today I'm actually going to talk about how will you measure your life. This book is authored by Clayton Christensen, and we have James Allworth and Karen Dillon also as the authors. Now, I would start by introducing Clayton Christensen, the author. And I think first things first, we lost Christensen on 23rd of January this year. So this year claimed him after a prolonged illness fight with cancer. And I would certainly and humbly like to talk about this book as a dedication to this great individual, great human being and author, Christensen as well. So I met Christensen around the October 2014, and this was while I was attending my AMP program at Harvard. There were 180 students, and if you all remember, Clayton Christensen is also the guru for innovation. He's written lots of books on innovation, including disruptive innovation as well. And I think in most of the companies, it was given that the new growth wave will come from innovation, and obviously Christensen was very, very sought after speaker. So here we were, all 180 people waiting for Christensen who walks in, and in he walks. A tall personality with great modulation, delivers a great lecture, and we were all gripped by his knowledge and what he had to share about innovation. Then what happened at the end of the lecture was something which was quite amazing, or quite different than what we had thought. He started to drift towards corporate ethics, and his personality completely changed. And the passion really came out very differently. And he started to sob in front of 200 people, 180 people. He started to sob as if he was taking ownership and responsibility for all what was going on around the corporate greed on the Wall Street, because I think that is how this author was, and that's how this great individual was. So I'm dedicating this discussion to him. Well, I packed my bags from there. There was excess baggage of books, came back, and guess what? The first book I picked up was How Will You Measure Your Life? And I think I will delve upon the book now, and my learnings would come a little later, because I think I certainly want to connect what this book is about to what my learnings are and were as well. Now, this book has two settings. One, Christensen used to take the last class for the Harvard graduating students, and he used to talk about to his passing out students about corporate ethics. So that is one background, and the second background is that he used to meet all his alumni every year, and he's actually seeing how bright people, after these get-togethers, 5-year get-together, 10-year get-together, 25-year get-together, how some of the bright people have taken the slippery slope and have actually fallen on the wayside. And now I'm talking about, some of them were employed by Enron and some of those scandals which we've actually seen. And I think that's where this entire thing germinated. This book germinated, and I think it really touched the chord, because on one side, really, the hardcore fighting, shrewd business strategies. On the other, about this business ethics as well. So that's the germination of this book. In few words, what this book is all about, I think he's brought beautifully the connection between professional and personal lives and how they are intertwined. And success in one cannot be seen as an overall success. And the overall success, if we start to measure only personal or only professional, I think would be one metrics or one parameters too short as well. I think this is where this entire theme of the book is. Also, it actually talks about how corporates, we have purpose, we have strategy, we have pretty much the 9 yards of culture and all of that as well. I think he talks about how the individual purpose, the individual culture within a family, individual strategy, individual career strategy, how important it is as well. Now, let me also say this, that Indus, I joined 11 years back, 10 years back, and I read this book in 2014. So this book actually came, and I didn't have the privilege of having this as my base book, as Charles mentioned, but this actually gave me some kind of reaffirmation of direction which we have set this company for as well. And I let me bring Indus into the picture. This company, as I said, was formed 11 years back, and this industry never existed. And the management had a choice. The choice was to possibly run it with a very compelling what. Instead, I think all the employees and the management got together and started to look at what would be the purpose of a company, what would be the culture of this company, and we all co-crafted certain amount of values for Indus and possibly the purpose as well. And with really a missionary zeal, we've been following our values to the hilt as well, and to almost like a non-negotiable extent as well. Now, I think not only we have a very robust values framework, we bring up our value dilemmas, etc., and over 10 years we've developed this very well within the company. What actually is a common or a reaffirmation for me within my workspace, within my what I do daily, I think there are two things, and they are very simple things which I would actually like to bring out, which really reaffirms things. In this book, Clayton brings out something which he says focus on right matrices as well. And I think here I would like to talk about two matrices which I think we have been focusing on, and I think it's a very clear guiding principle for Indus and me as a leader as well. First one is we keep talking about one thing within Indus, and this has been a constant, that we don't employ people, we employ families. And I think the family connect, making sure that it's not about the individual, it is about what the individual carries as a baggage, is something which we have been focusing on, and it reverberates so well with the book, because latter part of the book actually talks about the family and how it is intertwined with our professional lives. And if we try to separate we will start to see an incomplete measure of life as well. The second one is obvious, and I would certainly like to still state it as well, which is integrity as a cardinal value. Now, with large scale operation across India, with coming in conflict with lot of environmental challenges, I think we as management had initially lot of requests for gratification to further our business, and I think we did exactly what we were supposed to do, continue to stick to our values and make sure that we will not be interested in business which has any kind of gratification involved as well. I'm happy to say that it works as long as you are overt, and none such requests come in and it's stopped. Years back, the entire organization has been soaked in this color. So focus on right matrices and you will certainly get the right results, and it really reverberates. The second one is the one which I would certainly like to very close to my heart, and Christensen actually talks about teach them how to think and not what to think. And I think this is what Charles also mentioned in one way or the other as well. And let me explain this as well. It's about telling people how to do things or what to do things rather than allowing them to think as well. And I certainly want to bring out one incident in which I was certainly in the middle of it and middle of decision making, and this is how I actually chose make them how to think rather than what to think as well. We were running our strategy session, and this was after I came back from my program and was exposed to this book as well. We were running our strategy session, which is the 5-year strategy session. We were trying to figure out who can run this for us, and we invited a lot of consulting companies to run this for us. And there were lots of great proposals, very successful companies who had sort of applied to run our strategy session. And one thing that caught my eye was one of the companies had actually put together a proposal saying, we will teach your managers how to think, throw in the thought process of design thinking, open their minds up, and then converge this entire exercise. And for me, it was chalk and cheese from there on. I think none of the best platforms could manage or could measure up to the proposal which we had. And I think this was a clear example of teach them how to think as well. And I certainly believe in this coach approach towards problem solving. Let me also say this, that since that decision, we've managed to change the way we think, and I'm very happy to state that there was a great success and outcome of the strategy session as well. So once again, just repeating the two things: focus on the right matrices, and second, teach them how to think and not what to think as well. So I would just taper it off and hand it over. But before I do this, I think this book can be summarized in one simple line, which actually is written at the end of the book, which says this book does not offer easy answers. Instead, it will prompt you to consider the most important questions you will ever face. And I think this has been, I would say, the book, the journey. And I would certainly like to hand it over to Jairam with a big thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you, Bimal. I think that was an amazing insight, how to think versus what to think. And the fact that you got it from your session and the book, is testimony to the fact that books can teach us so much. I also very often go back to quotes from books whenever I'm caught up with a dilemma. And, I have this quotation by Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela, 27 years in the jail, and when he came out with no bitterness. And this is this amazing quotation by Nelson Mandela, which says that when I stepped out of the door towards the gate, towards my freedom, he was coming out of the prison, he says, I suddenly realized that if I don't leave my bitterness and my hatred behind, I will always remain in prison. And there have been so many occasions when my ego has been hurt by somebody and I want to go back and give it back to them. And then this quotation I remember, and then I know then it's no longer important. I say, one has to grow out of these things. So books are so fascinating, and if we really work on them, there'll be things which will be our companion for the rest of our lives. Thank you once again. And now we come to Vinod. Hi, Vinod. Vinod and we work together at Hughes. So anything and everything you want to know about Vinod, but were afraid to ask, you can talk to me. Vinod is, about Hughes, the parent organization of ours, the original company was a great global leader in telecom software. Can you quickly tell us, just I've asked the others, quickly tell us something more about Hughes System, one or two points which will wow us.
Yeah, so as we all know, Hughes is a global market leader in satellite communications. But what not many people know is that Hughes has pioneered some of the technologies which actually make the mobile telephony as we know happen. And another thing which I would like to state is that a lot of the software and the products which enable everybody and almost any citizen, any part of the world remote, to able to communicate if there is a disaster, if there is a hurricane, if there is an earthquake. A lot of that software development happens at our center in Hughes in Gurgaon.
Oh, amazing. And I know you are a voracious reader. You love to travel. We have traveled together, and you love your food. I also know that you love to cook, and I'm told that you're keeping your COVID days busy by cooking all kinds of cuisine, and more importantly, also, and you enjoy eating a lot of that. I hope you're taking care of your weight.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm polishing my skills so
Right.
that I'm prepared for my post retirement. Maybe I can start a restaurant.
Right. So let's come back to the book now. And your book was a very fascinating title. I'll let you say that and share with us what in the book inspired you and how did you apply it to your work and your life. You heard the other two speakers, so that will give you a cue. Thank you, Vinod, and please take it from here.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you, Ram, City Book Leaders, and NDIM for inviting me to this very fascinating concept where I'm not only sharing what I know, but also taking 4 times in terms of the knowledge and experience from everyone else. So before I come to the book, I would like to share a small story, and I'll take you back in history, 1992. That is when Hughes decided to set up an engineering R&D company in India in response to the economic reforms rolled out by the government of India. Our CEO, Anil Sharma, was an Indian origin American and old-time Hughes employee who had come to India to start the operations of the first Hughes company in India, Hughes Software Systems, HSS as it was popularly called. I joined HSS as part of the core team, excited to begin my journey as a manager and leader with a pioneering high-tech company. As part of our induction and initiation into the company, Anil got us together in the boardroom for our first formal management meeting. So we all were looking forward to his opening remarks, hearing from him. And I still remember his opening remarks. What he said was, friends, we have set up this company to have fun. Masti karenge. We were shocked. And before we could react, he said, I'm serious. Yes, we all will be working very hard doing R&D and software development for Hughes and other customers. But what is important is that you have fun while working in office and you and your families lead a happy life. As if this was not enough, he came up with another one. He said that it's not me or any of you who will be managing this company, but it will be all of us, including our vendors, partners, all those who are anyway responsible for running the operations of the company, be it security guards, pantry and housekeeping contractors, cafeteria providers, taxi walas, etc. They are all part of the family and need to be respected and treated like any of us. Now, fast forward to January 2020. I would like you to listen to the short audio clip of the same Anil, who is now our CEO of our current company, Hughes Steve. And the occasion is our annual all-employee get-together and party. So just give me a second so that I can start this audio.
And I'd also like to say something about the soul of this company, what it means. I like to think I'm your champion. My job is to take care of you. When we say, Windows said, we made this profit, company did well, what the hell does it mean? Who cares? If this does not translate to your personal growth, both financially as well as skill-wise, so that you get higher in life, you feel better about yourself. If you can do that, it makes no sense to have a company. There are companies who survive solely by increasing the value of stockholders or owners at any cost. They will suppress the employees, they'll abuse the employees, whatever it takes, they do that. And they're a successful company. They make a lot of money. You have so many of them here. But that's not our value. The way I like to think, I have a simple equation: employee care plus customer care, and you'll achieve success. I personally don't really care about how much money we made, how much we grew, because those are relative terms, and who cares? What I want to see that all of you have a fulfilling, successful, happy personal life, professional life, enjoy yourself with your friends, family, everybody else. If we can give you in the company, then shame on us. So on that behalf, I like to say we have achieved some success. This philosophy, this is the soul of our philosophy. Most senior people believe in that. I know that.
Okay. So why I narrated this story is to tell you that when I read this book, Delivering Happiness, and I read this book in 2011, this is written by the founder of Zappos.com, Tony Hsieh. A lot of things which he talks about, the way they created a great culture, building a company with a higher purpose, the values which they live by resonated with me, and what we had done at HSS and Hughes Steve. I thought I'll take you through some of these core learnings that we can all apply in our lives and businesses. By the way, Zappos was acquired by Amazon in 2009 for $1.2 billion. And this book went on to become a New York Times bestseller for more than 26 weeks. And a number of things which they talk about in this book are taught in Harvard as case studies. So coming to the key message from this book is that having a vision of a higher purpose means doing something bigger than whatever you are selling. It means having a goal that goes beyond making profits and growing a company. Business is not just about profits, rather it has to be profits with passion and purpose. If any business is aligned with people's personal passion and there is a higher purpose, like happiness of your employees who are like family, profits will be a byproduct. Connectedness and feeling like part of a tribe or community makes people happy and creates a sense of fulfillment. And both of these are strong motivators. When a group of people feel connected, like part of the family, there is a strong sense of obligation to the whole team, and the team works harder and everybody treats each other better. Another learning from this book is that company culture and customer service are key to a successful business. Ultimately, as we all know, happiness is what everyone is looking for in life, and the company can be successful by finding ways to make its employees, customers, and partners happy. The culture of the company is one of the most important characteristics. Your culture is your brand, and your employees are your brand ambassadors. Our experience at HSS and now at HSC, corroborated by what I read in Delivering Happiness and based on innumerable stories of successful startups that applied some of these principles, I can very confidently say that it is possible to build a profitable business on the bedrocks of great culture and value system, where happiness of employees, vendors, and partners is a higher purpose and not just increasing the shareholder value. I hope all our young participants, they find some of these lessons meaningful and can derive some actionable and implementable ideas from this book while leading their teams or building their businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Yeah.
Thank you, Vinod. In fact, it's my own experience that great leaders are people of great personal integrity. They say what they mean and they mean what they say. And all you gentlemen who have spoken today, the three of you have actually related things, and you have also shared your values. And you actually allowed yourself to be, you're going to be subjected to a greater amount of scrutiny, especially by your own employees who are on this course. And I think that takes guts. And I know that you had the guts to say these things because you really are doing what you said is happening.
Thank you, Jeff.
I heard Anil Sharma say something like, "I'm your champion," right?
Yeah.
Now, one of the things I studied and looked at was, what is the one thing that subordinates employees want from their boss? I think you guys must hear this. If we were to put it down to what is the one thing that a subordinates wants from their boss, it is they would like to have this feeling that the boss has their back.
Absolutely.
That you will take them into the middle of the river, but you won't leave them there. If they don't know how to swim, you will hold them and take them. If somehow by what you do and what you say, if every employee in your company feels that their boss has their back, just imagine the kind of company you will be building.
Right.
And coming back to the books, what I worry about today is with social media, the reading habit is going off, but I hope that we will bring it back. And thank you, Vinod, once again. And now I'd go to the last member in our community who's going to be speaking today, my friend Rajiv Chhabha. Rajiv, when I heard that Benedict Cumberbatch was the brand ambassador for the MG Hector, I loved it because he's one of my favorite actors. And personally, I think he has a lot of integrity. So when he says, this is a great car, I believe him. So you guys have created quite a storm by coming into the country in an extremely competitive environment and, making waves. Here is your opportunity to say something more and sell that car of yours in the next 1 or 2 sentences by wowing us and the audience. Tell us something a little more.
In fact, Jairam, it was pretty tough. And in fact, lots of guys wrote our obituary before we arrived. and still, I think a lot of naysayers. So that keeps us on our toes. And the challenge to us is that how do we try to keep exceeding expectations of various stakeholders. So it has been very tough, frankly, but our team decided that failure is not an option. And we tried to establish a very different kind of a company. So I would love to say that our team and our company is not a mainstream automotive company in the country.
I also know, this is the point I'm trying to bring out to the audience, that is, highly accomplished CEOs are not just workaholics. They have so many other interests. I know that you have stayed in many countries. You worked in GM for many years. You run the half marathon. You've run it about 5 times. You are into tennis and squash and also golf. And you also support the softer side of you. You have created a trust. for education of the underprivileged girls, and that's fantastic. Coming back to golf, you started it late, you play a good game. I want to challenge you to a game of golf post-COVID, and if I win, you let me choose one of the cars from your stable.
Right. You need to give me, I think, 8 or 10 strokes on 18 holes.
We will discuss that offline. Coming back to the theme, the book, what the book, why, how, and what inspired you, and how did it help you? How did it help you in your journey, in your work, and your career? Take it from here, Rajiv. Thank you.
Thanks, Jairam. Looks like Vinod, Charles, and Bimal have read my book and they have summarized already.
That's like what, whenever I used to make a presentation and if the chairman asked me a question, I would say, that's a great question. Why didn't I think of it?
So I think, my book is Trailblazer by Mark Benioff. This I read, this is one of the 3 books which I have read so far in the COVID times. And I think this book is so relevant and so contemporary, and it forces you to think in many ways. So like many management books, it also reinforces some of your beliefs, which is the first part. And the second part is that it forces you to think that what probably you have been doing wrong or what you can do more. So few things which I'll just say in few sentences, that it reinforces things which actually my co-panelists also have said, that the culture is most important, and keeps telling you all the time, culture eats strategy for breakfast, what Peter Drucker said. So culture eats everything. So when you are trying to set up a new organization or you take over something, some company, then I think the first job of CEO or the top manager is to set the culture right. And then obviously it talks about values of the company like trust and transparency. And basically Mark Benioff argues that trust and transparency are the same, are the 2 sides of the same coin, right? Also interestingly, it talks about, which is a new thing happening, that, it's okay to show your vulnerability as a leader. And in fact, it says vulnerability makes you and company stronger. That was very interesting thing, so on first half, it talks like that. Second half, frankly, it opens up and it blows your mind as far as I'm concerned. It talks about, let's talk about the purpose of the company. And as I think Vinod said and Bimal said, the purpose of the company is much larger than making profit. But the whole purpose of the company, I think you need to make sure that the purpose is so meaningful and purposeful that derives better profit. And also it says, because Mark Benioff, by the way, is the CEO of the Salesforce, which is like one of the contemporary companies like Google and Microsoft and Apple kind of companies like in San Francisco in California. So basically, he makes a point that millennials, the young generation, is not going to work for a company where you do not have a larger purpose. And then he defines the shareholder versus stakeholders. And as we know, that's the debate going on right now in Wall Street. And we all learned Butler and marketing books in our young days, in which it was maximizing the profit for the shareholder is the primary objective. And basically it says, no, you need to talk about stakeholders. And stakeholders, he talks about even planet as a stakeholder. So planet, employees, dealers, all ecosystem partners are your stakeholders. And then he talks about how do you engage employees in basically furthering the interest of all these stakeholders. It's not only CEO, but can you create a culture where all employees actually become part of making an impact in whatever areas they're interested in. And he talks about a tool. How do you do it? Like in this company, they talk about 1-1-1. So 1% of equity, which is profit, 1% of the product, 1% of employee time has to be spent on the areas where you think you're giving back to society. So then basically he leads on further and he talks about actually a CEO cannot get away from the fact that he has to take opinion on social issues. And then he starts saying that actually maybe a CEO is an activist. And frankly, if you see the quotes of the big company CEOs in today's time, like today's IBM's CEO's quote came about racism. And he said, I will not do facial recognition technology because that enhances racism. Like your Google CEOs and all. So those people are talking about that they had to be the stakeholders in the social issues also. So actually, when I reflect back and think, I became head of GM India when I was 40 years old. I was lucky and I was blessed. And I thought I did a good job. When I reflect back, I imagine the kind of blunders I made, the kind of mistakes I did. And sometimes I feel I was like a headless chicken that point of time when I was roaming around with full energy without any big purpose. In the second CEO job, which I did in Egypt, and I was in charge for North Africa, there I thought I did something better. But when I took this job, and in the last 4 years, I think I have done well. After reading this book, looks like I haven't done anything. And I have to start going, I have to do more, and I can do a lot. So I will just end up by saying one quote from this book, the power of business as the greatest platform for change. I'm not powerful, my seat is powerful. So I think this is my time to give it back, whatever best I can do for the society and for the planet as a whole.
You're doing it, Rajiv, because your trust that you have, we are doing for the girl children. And, when I try to sum up, when each one of you talks, when I try to sum up, I try to pull out nuggets which will be useful to the vast majority of young people who are actually on this call.
Yeah, very right. Yeah.
And Rajiv, you spoke about vulnerability. I remember, Charles and me, Charles was the chairman of the jury when we were in the business world jury for choosing the best HR company in the country and HR leaders. And Charles was being interviewed by the business world chairman, Anurag Batra then. And I remember Anurag Batra asked Charles, you've worked in so many countries, you tend to get parachuted into a new country as the CEO. Is there any advice you'd like to give the people in the audience? And Charles said something very fascinating. He spoke around vulnerability. He said, that Charles realized that CEOs are not supermen. And we are seeing that tonight, this evening. He said, a CEO need not have all the answers. A CEO must, if necessary, share their vulnerability, especially with their team. And that is how they'll get the best suggestions. Vulnerability does not mean that you bite your teeth and hide yourself and say, oh my God, I don't know what to do with this. But surely you guys get the drift. So being vulnerable, and all of you have displayed it here tonight. And I remember I was reading something about Silicon Valley millionaires and billionaires some time ago. There are 4 or 5 things in common with these people. And that's what I want to share with the audience. The one is that they're all very well educated. The second is they're all very focused and driven. The third is they take care of their health. They have interests beyond their work. And the fourth is, this is important, they are voracious readers. Bill Gates must read 50 books in a year. Obama reads so many of them. This is in every walk of life. I'm saying it also for the many ex-bureaucrats and bureaucrats who are on this call. Voracious readers. And the fifth is they are great communicators. And acquisition of these qualities will help everybody go a long way. And of course, you've spoken of other things. Before I hand over to Mohit, I want to do one last thing. I think this will benefit a lot of youngsters on this program. I want to ask one question, just one question to each of these 4 panelists. The same question, and I want you to give a reply in the shortest way you can, but give us some insightful replies. And the question is, if you were to suddenly meet your younger 21-year-old self suddenly somewhere. So Charles, if you were to meet the younger 21-year-old Charles the way you knew him, and of course, at that time he was otherwise, today you are wise. What are the 2 or 3 things? What are the 2 or 3 bits of advice you would give your younger Charles, 21 years old? And the other 3 panelists better start thinking. I'm going to come to you soon.
Charles, please unmute
You're on
yourself.
mute, Charles.
Yeah, Charles.
I got it. Now I'm with you now. I unmuted there. So that's, looking back, I think we all look back about, the way we were when we were young, and of course that's still part of who we are, and a lot of that, hasn't changed. But I look back at myself when I was 21. I was young and eager to climb and aggressive, competitive, and to be honest, I think far too self-centered. And I think in very short statements, what I would say to people is be humble. I think that this is one of the most underrated pieces of advice anyone has ever given me. Be humble, be caring about people, and be positive. people don't want to be around negative people. They want to be around, they want their leaders to be positive. So I would say be humble, be caring, be positive.
Thanks,
Thank
Charles.
you.
I think that is something so fantastic. And
Yeah, yeah.
Bimal, it's your turn. On the same question, you meet a 21-year-old young Bimal, and what is the pieces of 2-3 nuggets of advice you would give your younger 21-year-old self?
It will be difficult for me to identify myself 21-year-old, but let's say 3 things. First one is, I think I will tell myself, experiment with life much more. Shrug the middle class insecurities. I think it's all in the mind to start with. Second one is a little cliche from my side, but it's always resonates, and I think it's important at any stage. Think big and clear. The third one is, I think this is where I lost the plot, though I was clear even at that time as well, that continue formal education no matter where or when. And I think I would certainly wake up every time and 21-year-old or now, continue formal education.
Thanks, Bimal. I think I don't have to say it. The people who are listening will say that that was fantastic. I mean, something really insightful. Vinod, your turn to outdo Charles and Bimal.
Yeah, so a couple of things. Maybe I should have pursued some hobby in creative arts, whether music, singing, dancing, painting, something on the creative side. That is something which I feel I should have done. Second, maybe traveled more and explored India, because you had time, you had opportunity that time.
You have been articulating a lot of my own thoughts, Vinod. Thank you very much. And Rajiv, being the last person, is either good or bad, depending on how you want to say it. You can just say, I agree with the other 3 and close it. But you're not going to let we won't let you do that, Rajiv. So
But
now
you will not let him do it. Yeah, you will not let him do it there.
And Rajiv,
I won't know 21 or 26, 27, but I think.
Rajiv, let me tell you one thing. You shouldn't have said 40 years ago then, because you don't look more than 40 now. And 31 years would have just been 19 years ago for you. Please tell us.
So I didn't say 40 years ago. By the way, I said I was 40 years of age.
40 years then.
Yeah. So so I won't know 21 or 26, 27, but I think 3 things if I can advise, and I wish I had done more. So it's both ways, right? I think I would like at that age to spend more time with your young kids. I wish I had done that. Second, I think I would have loved to pick up another language, which I didn't do. And I had a chance. I lived in Japan, I lived in China, I lived in Egypt, but I couldn't do it. I think it was late, or maybe it's an excuse from my side, okay? Maybe an excuse. So at young age, if you can do it, you can learn a language. I think it's good, And the third, I would say what Vinod said, you pick up I think at a young age, you should pick up a hobby, which you can continue for your whole life, in my opinion. That hobby can be creative thing. It can be games, it can be whatever, but you can, if you indulge in that, you forget about your corporate life for some time, right? And you just do that, and you can expand on that post your retirement. So I think these 3 things are.
Oh, amazing. And I've really enjoyed moderating this, and being the youngest amongst all of you, I've learned a lot from you also. And I'd like to have, before I hand over to Mohit, Dr. Bansal, thank you very much once again for helping us put all this together. And Mohit, it's your turn now to take it from here. Thank you.
I think before I pass it on to Ankur, it's very important to mention 2 people before people ask their questions as well, because so we have Ankur with us. On the screen, it might say it is NDIM Webinar, but let me tell all of you, all more than 500 people here, he's like the Shah Rukh Khan of Swadesh. I don't know how many remember this movie, where the NASA scientist comes back to India and wants to serve his country. That's what Ankur is to us. He's the vice chairman of NDIM, was doing very well in New York. He's a chartered accountant, and came back to India only to participate in the passion that Dr. Bansal puts into education for this country. He's solving a real big problem. And to the second person here, thank you very much, Ankur. And to Professor Nikhil Singh, he's the CEO of Excellence Center with NDIM and doing some fantabulous job. And also the Dean training innovates a lot in terms of new initiatives and learning and development. So thank you very much to both of you. And of course, before we take answers, it's very important for me to tell you, if you were watching a movie for the last 1 hour, everyone knows who's the director of this movie. There's only one director, and that's Jairam Easwaran.
Yeah,
I tell you, he had took all 5 of us by sending regular messages. He was so meticulous, and I think all 4 of them would agree. I was still in the backside. I was enjoying those conversations. So
Mohit,
thank you, Jairam.
Mohit, Mohit, thank you for that, Mohit. And I would have been very disappointed if you had not said that.
Thank you. I want to say one more thing.
Yeah.
How often do you meet people after their retirement while they're playing golf? They take up a purpose in life. That's what Mr. Jairam Easwaran did before writing a book. For him, it was like an easy task. Many of the corporate honchos do it. But for him, and that's what struck me, he actually did the course of script writing. Mahatma Gandhi started studying Urdu, learning Urdu at the age of 72. That means learning has absolutely
I'm not 72, yeah.
No, I'm not saying 72. I'm saying at a much younger age. So I think that's very inspiring to all of us who are listening. And his book, Inside the C-Suite, I have purposefully placed it in the back there so that people can see it. It's a fantastic book, 21 great stories. Every kid in or anyone in the corporate life or anywhere in life, you will find quick answers to it. So thank you very much for moderating this. Bansal sir, whatever I will say, it's like
no, Mohit, you are like you're like a younger brother. We have been together, since your CBL starting days, and I really told you that the work that you had started was something very innovative, and the passion with which you are doing. I must tell public before, of course, time is short. Mohit has a problem. I tell him that let's meet at 10:30 or whatever. The guy reaches our college at 8:30. He says, "Sab main to aa gaya hu, and ab batao kisi ko bol do mujhe darwaza kholte. I can keep sitting here." So he's a very early riser, starts the work so very early. And at times when I see him online at 11 o'clock in the night, I ask him, "Tabhi tak soya kyun nahi hai?" So before we go to formal questions, Jairam, now I'm going to question the director here. You have asked all the other people about 3 things, if they were 21. So I'm asking same thing to my friend Jairam. He should tell me then he was 21, what exactly now he feels he should have done.
I think the 3 things I would tell myself is, one is that arrogance. Just because you had a good life, you had a great education, and in society, you were born in a place where you had a good shake of the dice when you were born. The arrogance is not a good thing. And the other thing is, because life swings between tears and joy for all of us. We'll all go through it. Tell myself that this too shall pass. That's the second important thing I'll internalize. And the third thing, of course, is, I did that a little late, but like somebody, I think Rajiv said, or Vinod said, acquire some interest in the arts. I am learning now Hindustan classical music for the last 2 years, so I should have picked it up much earlier, because it elevates the soul in a different way. Maybe these are the 3 things.
Quite right. Thank you so much. Now, Nikhil, please, take some questions so that, all the people have been here all through. I'm sure they had a very good time, but let's see what exactly, they're wanting to know more from us.
Yeah. So on a lighter note, test starts now for all our CEOs.
Yes.
All right. So first question has come from Mr. Dhanendra Kumar. He is a former civil servant, former executive director at World Bank, and he was the first chairman of Competition Commission of India. He's asking, what are your views? I think this is with okay. So he's asking, what are your views on the short, medium, and long-term projections of the auto sector in India, and what are the regulatory or policy changes in your views are needed to push it up? So this is one question. I think this is for Charles, I believe. And
I think Rajiv could probably handle this one as well.
Yeah.
I'm happy to chime in, but why don't you go first, Rajiv? I've been going first before.
Yeah, I think the short term, if I take short term as few months during which the COVID virus is still there, I think the whole issue is about the supply chain management, and here I think we need to have a clarity like who can operate, who cannot operate, and the standard operating process. I think still people are opening up, the labor issues are there, and some suppliers are still not geared up and not able to ramp up. So in the short term, I think it's all supply chain side of issues. In the medium term, it will be a demand issue, and we need to have stimulus to generate demand. And there, I think the government can do something in the midterm to stimulate demand. In the long term, it's all about long-term policies of the country. I think the kind of policies we have made already put us into a bracket of all the other developed markets in terms of safety of the cars, emission norms of the cars, and things like that. But we need to be very clear about the environmental issues related to the car. Are we going in the EV direction? Are we going in the hybrid direction? And like a newborn baby in that area, we need some kind of a clarity and support and holding in that area. So I think long term is all policy, mid term is about demand generation, short term is supply chain constraints.
Very, very well said. Yeah, extremely well said. So concisely. Nikhil, please carry on.
I can only echo that a little.
Yeah, please.
I think that's extremely well said from the automotive business. I think short term, as Jairam says, this too shall pass, and we're already starting to see some green shoots, and my hope is that even by the festive season, we'll start seeing things improve. And long term, I know we're aligned in saying we need to take more, that the automotive sector needs to take more responsibility for the environment. And I think electrification is absolutely the way forward. And I see those policies in place for the Indian government. And my only ask is that they keep those policies in place so we can continue to plan to bring more and more electric vehicles to India.
Quite right. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Next question is for Bimalji. So the question is, teach them how to think, not what to think. How do you think educational institutions can help prepare our young talent according to these words?
Well, I think it's a great question because, and I would certainly like to reflect on the way I got educated as well. And I think for us, it was very, very straight-jacketed approach towards problem solving, etc. And I think what I do believe is missing and was missing during my time was not to give straight answers. That there is the question and here is the answer, but try and develop the thought process towards and the approach towards problem solving as well. And to me, and inspired by this, I did manage to step out of my directive approach, change the way I used to interact with people as well, and got into the method of coaching. If you actually look at the classical coaching methods as well, I think they are not directed towards do it like this as well. It is about asking powerful questions and getting the answers as well. My take is I think we should have at least senior level amalgamation of those techniques as well to develop students to get answers from them rather than being directive towards this is the question and this is the answer as well. I'm a big fan of executive coaching, which is what I believe in, and I think that can solve the problem.
Thank you. That's remarkable.
Thank you. Rajiv, this question is for you. The question is, in what ways do you think the culture of Salesforce described in the book is similar to culture at MG India, Motor India?
So I think, one thing, it starts with the people and the policies. And we have taken pains to ensure that we get the best talent from the industry. And also, it's not only industry. Unfortunately, I have to say that sometimes it's the middle range of executives which is an issue. Even at the top, if you have a clarity and the youngsters probably will follow you, it's the middle level which basically has been doing the same thing, same way from last 15, 20 years, and that becomes an issue. So to change their mindset is a big issue. So here, in terms of people, we have taken some good people from the industry, and we are taking lots of youngsters not from the industry, not from the industry. So this is one thing. Second is policy, and policy, I think we have a very interesting philosophy. You can make policy in two ways. Either you say, I trust you unless you prove me wrong, or I don't trust you unless you prove me wrong.
Okay.
Unfortunately, and I hate to say it, and I would be happy to be proven wrong, most of the policies in our country are made assuming you are a crook, and I don't trust you, right? And that's why I make a policy which is 50 pages, a lot of interpretation, and subject to a lot of gray thing. Whereas if I trust you, I make a single page policy, and there will be outliers. There will be some people who will misuse or abuse it. But the system has to be such that you should find out these outliers, abusers, and handle them separately. But I would like to believe 90% of people in any company, in any country, are good people. So they need to be given a good policy, simple policy, assuming I trust you. 10% or 5%, depending on the culture of the company or the country, you handle them separately. So these two things we have done in our company, and that's why our policies are simple. We don't need any consultant to interpret our policies. We don't have ifs and buts. In our company, if we say it's a 5-year warranty unlimited, we don't have 6 lines explaining our warranty policy on the car. It says everything is inclusive. And we give benefit of doubt to the employee and to the consumer. So this is how we are trying to make the culture. But again, let me tell you, we are not saints. हम भी पाप करते हैं बीच में. So it's not a culture which it's everybody's great and our company is great. No, I think we have this fundamental foundation and we keep improving upon it. We also stumble upon many challenges, but I think with that spirit we try to solve it.
All right. Okay.
Jairam,
Yeah.
I will have to log out because I have to get into another call in 2 minutes.
Thank you so much, Vinod.
Let me ask one last question with Vinodji, before you leave. Vinodji, the question is, what is the biggest takeaway you can share from the book, keeping in mind a lot of MBA students are heavily inclined towards entrepreneurship?
So I think, the biggest takeaway for students, and as you said, if they are inclined towards entrepreneurship, is that they should definitely read this book and just see how Tony Hsieh, during his journey, right, discovered his passion. And what he found was that his passion lies in creating something, building something. And that is how he started Zappos, even though before Zappos, he had started Link Exchange and had sold Link Exchange during those days, which was early 2000, to Microsoft for $225 million. Okay. But then what he felt was that he wanted to continue with something, again, build something new and make it big with a higher purpose.
In fact, I didn't mention this, but Vinod is really mentoring a lot of very successful startups, and you are the most qualified to really answer that question. And thank you for your presence here, Vinod.
And Vinodji, before you go and before you form, I thank you formally, because we'll carry on maybe another 10 minutes with others. I just wanted to mention you because abhi jo aapki the final introduction given by Jairam, that's very useful to the students with us, because we are the Pan India Incubation Center for the SOCHAM. We're the only college they picked up Pan India. And on their 12 roadshows in 2019, we were partnering with them. So I would keep on requesting you to kindly spare some time, because now the government of India is giving MBA into entrepreneurship also from this year. And possibly we would be, entitled to give it that. AICT possibly is going to sanction. So we'll have to be banking upon this skill of yours for the benefit of the next generation.
No, I'll be happy to contribute. And sir, you may not remember, I had visited your college about 4 or 5 years back.
मुझे याद है भाई, मुझे याद है. उसके बाद आप गुम हो गए हो ना. इसलिए I'm reconnecting, I'm reminding you of your commitment that you had given to me that time.
Absolutely, I'll be happy, sir.
Thank you so very much, and of course we'll miss you for the next 10 minutes. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Nikhil, please have another two questions so that I mean, we don't delay our people.
Next question is for Charles. What do you think is the most challenging factor when it comes to unlocking the potential of your employees?
To be honest, I think it's just getting out of their way. When I look at my employees, I've worked in a number of different countries. I've worked in the U.S., from the U.S., China, Sweden, Japan, and what really amazes me about India is the sheer capability of people. And I'm lucky enough to work on a team that has endless potential, and I just need to be able to help them get to where they need to go. So I think that's really facilitating. That is really one of the biggest and most important parts of my job.
Okay.
Just a quick follow-up to the initial piece that you said and the question that you just answered, where you primarily focused on giving the bigger picture direction and then letting the employees roll with it. How does this compare with the opposing thought of having a proper flowchart and a system for every process, and everybody's going to go by the book and everything is already written down in a manual?
Yeah, I think that we all know that when I think coming from the automotive business, this is a very common way of management. We think we can have a perfect process, we can beat that process into people, but I think the real world always hits that process, and really understanding what the right thing to do is, really understanding what the greater purpose is going to be far more powerful than following every step, because there's no real life situation that follows the process 100%. And I think that that's something that I feel very strongly about, and making sure that people know where we're headed, not necessarily every step they get there.
Okay, thank you so much.
One interesting question from the audience was, we've learned about the books that everybody felt inspired by, but what are the future books that everybody has on their list to read?
You should pass it on to Mohit, and he should put it on LinkedIn or something.
Nice. Charles is reading Inside the C-Suite. But
I should also show. So I'll give one name here quickly, sir. There's a beautiful book which is because Vinod mentioned that he would like to learn something about art as well. This is a fantastic book. This is an international acclaimed book. This has been awarded, written by an Indian, Likla, that's her name. This book is a workbook, and people of all age can actually use it. This is the best book where you will find design enabled into a book. So from a child to possibly 80-year-old can actually read and work on this book. It's a fantastic book. I would recommend.
Mohit, this is the second book you should recommend. The first one is on investment behind.
He should only recommend one book today.
I'm reading a book called Born to Run, and basically it tells you that it's not a management book per se, but it tells you a man can do woman can do so much in life, and that basically how do you learn to run for miles and miles and enjoy it. So again, basically it focuses in a way about the larger purpose issues. It's not a management book, but I think very interesting book, Born to Run.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Anything more, Nikhil? We have another question, or you'd like that most of the questions have been answered by the session taken by everybody?
I think so, but just a final piece we can ask for a lot of the audience, which are students who are currently pursuing management or will be joining a management program. What would be your take on the economy, maybe for MBAs graduating in 2021 and 2022? Where do you see future for them? Where do you see the economy for them maybe 2 years later? And how should they be, what should they be doing now for the next 2 years to be better prepared for the roles of the future?
wants to go?
Yeah,
Each one, everybody. Yeah.
Somebody said Bimal to go.
Everybody has to be giving their bit of advice, including Mohit.
Right. So maybe I'll go on this one first. I think where we stand right now is the pace of change is so fast, and I'm actually talking about multiple forces have emerged at the same time. One, even if you leave aside COVID, there has been a huge, I would say, tectonic shift in how we are operating as corporates and even societies as well. And I think this digital revolution was taking place, and come COVID has actually changed a lot of things. And I think the way we will emerge will be a very different society than what we are right now as well. And I have no doubts on that one. I think this shift that was taking place at a slower pace probably will get accelerated as well. And I think one needs to actually look at and do the prognosis of what happens to each sector before going into where one has to jump out as well. Just as I think the automotive sector, I think we really heard short-term logistics, long-term the policy framework as well. I think from, let's say, telecom perspective, a lot probably has happened, and I think we are in the midst of transformation. But we probably will see a lot of boom, a lot of consumption, and a lot of other industries which will get changed through, let's say, telecom sector. Education sector, I think I have less right to talk about as well. But coming in from where I sit, I think there will be a huge change in the way education will be delivered and consumed. And we are probably seeing early signs of this as well. And one can keep talking about sector after sector. The good news for the current students is that one can seriously visualize which direction we would be going, and probably make a choice which reverberates with their hearts. What motivates them as well? Because this change is here, and there is huge opportunity to participate in this wave as well. Probably the old world order will not remain the way it was. So that would be my message. If I talk like this to my daughter, who is coming out of class 12, she would say, "Excuse me, easier said than done." Yes, I think it's a very difficult time. But such pace, I think, is always difficult to manage. But it is fraught with opportunities provided we focus, think, and change.
Oh, that's really great. Thank you so much. Each one, please give your, honest views onto this. What exactly in the future for the graduating people after 2 years, and so that, mentally they know what it is, but your word will make all the difference to them.
So I'll go here. And if you don't mind, after this, probably I have to log off if you don't mind.
No, that's closing now. That's the last question.
Yeah. So I would say that, listen, when I was 30 years back MBA student, did I imagine what I would be doing at the age of 50? No way. And probably I can say with confidence for 95% of people. They didn't know 30 years back what they would be doing. In fact, if I reflect back on my journey, and even 10 years back, I didn't imagine I would be doing what I'm doing right now. Okay. So it's difficult to plan everything. And by the way, it doesn't happen. So at that age, sometimes we are too keen to know what is my career, what's my future, what is my first job. I think all these things do not matter. What matters, right? And also it doesn't matter that if you are studying to get good marks, it does not matter. I think what matters is your karma at this point of time, at this stage of your life, is to study. You keep doing that. Learn more. You please do that. And also learn something out of your comfort zone. So if you say that I'm marketing and you just read marketing subjects, I think it's not good. You need to take You need to learn about finance. You need to learn about behavioral science.
Very right.
As you realize the psychology and you have to deal with the people, people issues, people-related subjects. Ethics, all are very, very important. And sometimes we say, no, I'm a marketing guy or I'm a finance guy, I'll not take the subjects. I think try to read as many subjects as possible. In the 3 Idiot thing, there was a dialogue that, you are here to acquire, whichever college you are in, you are here to acquire knowledge,
right.
not to get marks. So I think please do that and rest, enjoy your life and try to be happy.
Dr. Bansal, I think, Dr. Bansal, if I may, between Bimal and Rajiv, they have articulated a lot of what we are all going to be saying.
I entirely agree.
And I'm seeing participants also, the way they are saying. So maybe we can wrap up here and try and answer these questions on the CBL site or your site or something. We can take these questions and answer it there. Okay.
Perfectly right.
If you agree with me, I'll appreciate it.
No, thank you very much. All the panelists, all the speakers, thank you, Mohit, thank you, Bigger Way, the director of the event, Jairamji, and all the great participants. They have been waiting for this day. They've been waiting to meet you people. They've been waiting to listen to all of you. Thank you, each one of you, for being with us. And please, I'm also seeing your passion of teaching, your passion of mentoring, your passion of staying connected to the next generation. Please do that. Mohit will provide the platform. We'll provide the platform, and we'll keep requesting Jairam to be the person going between us, because all of us, as I can see, and I don't say this age, but after such a long innings, we all feel that we have so much that we can give back. When you go back 20 years, 30 years back, we have been saying that this I would have done. So I think this is what the young generation needs to be knowing. I'm so very happy to all that. And all the participants, they have met today, they have listened today to the dream MDs, dream CEOs of dream companies. So to me also, it's a great kind of an event, great learning, great meeting each one of you. The things that we see on the road, the things that we see on every station, every tower is there. So we never knew that people behind all that are so simple people sitting with me all the time. People are willing to give all the time. So I'm so very happy that you people decided to come. Next week, this Saturday, again, we're having another big event. 30th June, we are having our convocation. Agriculture Ministry has agreed to come. So I request each one of you to please stay connected, because we need to be taking so much from you for the next generation. Me together, myself also, it has been a long innings in the government for 40 years. And thereafter, I feel really mad that whatever I learned, there's so much to give to the academia, so much to be given to the students. And that is what keeps me working for 12 to 16 hours a day. And I really very honestly seek your help. Very much, everybody. Thank you once again. All the participants, extremely grateful. And thank you, my board of directors also, for being a part of this show. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jairam, once again. Thank you, Mohit. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Bimal. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Rajiv, everybody. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Let's meet very soon once again. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.